everybody, and a very warm welcome to Council Chamber again, and special welcome to members of the public watching this on live stream, and maybe some members of the Waihinau Community Board as well. Welcome to the Chair of the Waihinau Community Board, Heather Breakwater, who's in the chamber with us, to media staff and councillors. Good morning, and just very quick happy birthday to Councillor Percival for celebrating another turn around the planet today. So well done for you. Today is an extraordinary council meeting, specifically to swear in our new councillor for the Waihinau ward, Jim Thompson. So it's something we're very much looking forward to, and we definitely welcome you on board, Jim. Great to have you here. First of all, just ask, are there any apologies? We have one for the. Do we have any other apologies? Move, we accept that apology. Councillor Holding, Councillor Tavendale, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? That's carried. Okay. Do we have any declarations of interest? Expect any, so it's fine. Thank you. So now we go straight on to the inauguration of Councillor-elect Jim Thompson. So we will do the official duties at the other end of the council table. Okay. So here we should have the declarations. You'd like to read that out?
I, James Alexander Thompson, declare that I will faithfully and impartially, and according to the best of my skill and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of the Waitaki District the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Waitaki District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act.
Right, we'll do that now, so if you could just sign here. Congratulations.
Done.
Right, and as simple as that, we have a representative for the Waihinau board once again. Okay, we now move on to second report, which is around the structure. Sorry, we just do need to have a mover and seconder for the previous motion. Councillor Tavendale, Councillor Bailey, thank you. Any comments, objections? Right, so we'll put those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, that's carried. So now we move on to the committee structure. So there's obviously there's a few changes with Councillor Thompson coming on board, and we've assigned him roles on the Assets Committee, Community Culture and Regulatory Committee, the Development Contributions Committee as Associate Chair, and the Grants and Awards Committee, which all councillors are part of. In addition to that, by legislation, Councillor Thompson is also appointed to the Waihinau Community Board, and by choice is appointed to the Encourage Community Development Trust, which is based in Waihinau as well. So we've also taken the opportunity to just correct or to make some other subtle changes. Councillor name to that change official. Just note also in the Assets Committee, I believe Councillor Tavendale should be listed in the isn't correct. So that's a slight change to what's listed in there. So any questions from anyone first of all, before we take a motion? Right. Someone like to move recommendations with those changes? Councillor Kingan, Councillor Wallstein. Right, those in favour then, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, it's carried. So well done, Councillor Thompson. You now have some real jobs to do. Okay, now the next part of the agenda is the explanation of legislation by the Chief Executive. So obviously quite a number of acts that govern how council is run and how councillors operate. So just get Mr. Power to talk through those.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a number of pieces of legislation that are applicable. The report sets out the responsibilities, councillor, in full, but I just wanted to draw your attention to a few particular points that can occasionally trip elected members up. The most important of these is the Local Authority Members' Interest Act 1968, and this may not apply to you, but it's very important to keep in mind that there is a $25,000 contractual limit for an elected member with any local authority. That contractual limit can be varied upwards, but only with the prior approval of the Auditor General. And if that approval is not provided prior, then there can be quite significant consequences, essentially leading to an extraordinary vacancy and removal from office if that is breached. And that is something that does occasionally cause some concern around the country. It's very easy for that figure to be exceeded if one is in a contracting situation in a smaller local authority. The other element of the Members' Interest Act, which is important to keep in mind, is where one has a spouse with a shareholding of 10% or above in a company that is contractually in a relationship with council, and that also can lead to some issues as well. Just turning to the Crimes Act, sections 99, 105 and 105A. Section 105A is probably most applicable of them, and that provides that every official is liable to 7 years imprisonment who corruptly uses any information acquired in an official capacity to obtain directly or indirectly an advantage or a pecuniary gain for the official or any other person. That will never occur in your or any other instance around this table. The final act is the Secret Commissions Act of 1910, and this really sets out your relationship with the community in that you are deemed to act as an agent of council, and every agent commits an offence who corruptly accepts or obtains or solicits for themselves or for any other person any gift or other consideration as an inducement or reward for doing or not doing any act in relation to the council's affairs, or for having shown favour or disfavour to any person in relation to the council's affairs. And finally, any agent who diverts, obstructs or interferes with the proper course of the council's business or fails to use due diligence in the prosecution of such business with intent to obtain for themselves or any other person any gift or other consideration shall be deemed to have corruptly solicited consideration. And just finally, very importantly, Health and Safety at Work Act. For the purposes of the Health and Safety at Work Act, you are deemed to be an officer, and officers have a number of obligations of due diligence, and those are set out in the report there for you, and no doubt you're familiar with those already. So in summary, that's my advice to you in relation to the legislation. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Power. Just on the health and safety thing, it's always important to note that councils have been treated slightly differently. So while you have the responsibilities of making sure that the health and safety aspects are taken care of within council, unlike a normal regular company, if something goes badly wrong, you don't get to go to prison, but the chief executive does. So we always want to make sure that we look after our chief executive. So just keep that one in mind as we go through. But that covers off the legislation pretty well. So would someone like to move to receive the information? Councillor Grovey and Councillor Holding. Thank you. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. And with that, that draws this meeting to a close. So again, congratulations, Councillor Thompson. Welcome aboard. We look forward to great contribution from you over the next period of time. And we're very pleased to have you here and to have Wahimo Ward represented. But as you understand, we all represent the whole district when it comes to how we act around this table. Congratulations. Well, so with that, councillors, I'll now declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. We'll now be going, having a short break, and just need to double check. Governance wasn't straight to assets. Yeah. So there'll be just a few minutes break. We'll go to the assets committee. Thank you very much.
Okay, so welcome everyone, and we're back in action. So good morning and welcome to those that are watching live stream. I'll ask if there are any apologies, and I don't think there are really. Any declarations of interest, not conflicts of interest, declarations of interest? No. If not, we'll move on to item 3, confirmation of the previous minutes. So they're there in front of you. Any errors or omissions? Moved, Councillor Holding. Seconded, Councillor Tevendale. Thank you. Any discussion at all? All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no, and that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the decision reports. Item 4.1. Responsible freedom camping. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Item 3.1. Start again. And we've done that. I'm having a bad morning. Item 4.1 road stopping. So with that mess, I'll now call on Mr. Hope, who was going to call on someone else.
Yeah, but Mrs. Julius is frantically trying to make the way to the council chamber at the moment, so I will cover these in the meantime. So this is a request into relation to stopping a couple of small portions of road in Mawariki. These are displayed on the 2 maps on page 14, so hopefully you can understand where they are. Really, as the report outlines, stopping the road is the first process of actually dealing with these in a more long-term manner. So this is just a reasonably straightforward matter, and open to any questions.
I wasn't quite clear. I can see the new easement, but I wasn't quite clear on the portions being closed.
So on page 14, it's the 2 pieces in purple.
Okay, so that says new easements required.
Yeah, so that's just the way the map's been put together, but those are the pieces we are talking about. So as you can see, they have some lovely trees on them at the moment.
Obviously, there's going to be a public notification process for this particular one.
Yeah.
What does that involve?
Yeah, I think literally putting a public notice both on the council website and in the media, announcing the intention to close these small portions of road. And within public notices, there's an opportunity to provide some feedback to council on the matter.
Just a quick clarification. I think that that's sort of been stopped in the diagram. Section 1, section 2, and section 3, which are parts of the road, but it's normal practice is it's actually being used by those neighbouring properties. Just the way things have happened over time. So it's just it adds to those properties that are affected there, but in a way that is actually help on that one.
Thank you.
So welcome to the chamber now, Mrs. Julius. We're probably a little ahead of time, so but anyway, any further queries? Councillor Chris.
Yeah, Renee, were these stoppings initiated by the landowners or by process?
Okay, so I think they're reasonably straightforward. Any further questions? Councillor Walston.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Kingham. Yeah, I agree. It makes sense because these pieces are not being used as a road, and especially the property at the back. One, two at the back. Without that, the access through those easements, it would actually be landlocked. It almost appears to be landlocked from the front, so it guarantees access through. So it makes perfect sense all around. So, yep.
Thank you. So, someone care to move Councillor Tevendale, seconded Councillor Walston. Move recommendation. Any further discussion? Not all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. No, and that's carried.
Chair, could I just ask the report back to councillors at some stage. The results of this action.
Certainly, how would that normally be done?
Well, it can be done informally, whether it's part of a meeting or basically solve things. There's no even that helpful. So we have a good understanding of the process is done.
Certainly noted. We'll now move on to item 4.2. Smith Road, Livingston 1. To Julius.
There has been a request to stop a piece of road out in the country and to actually form or use that for any future purpose. And the road would actually be amalgamated into the title so that all parcels had legal frontage to road. It's been checked with roading manager, Mr. Harrison, and there's been no future use identified.
Thank you. So any questions at all? Councillor Townsend.
Is that house built right over the easement? Half over?
Probably shouldn't have happened.
Might
really.
tidy things up a little. Perfect.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Milne. Williams, sorry.
Just a question about the instigator. So was it M. Smith who instigated it? I see there's going to be some expense to him amalgamating titles. So I just want to make sure that he's happy with that. Yes.
Any further?
Happy to move.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving the recommendation. Is there a second? Seconded, Councillor Tannadell. Any further questions or discussion?
Just a very quick comment. There are just so many of these sort of situations, we keep finding popping up and so on, where people have built across boundaries and so on. Something looks like it's part of the section. So yeah, over time these things will keep coming to us, and it's just trying to tidy up as we go. There's a lot of work trying to get ahead of it and preemptively do it all, but certainly as it's identified and that it can be rectified. So this and just get that properly reversed as it should be.
Thank you. Then all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, no. It's carried. 4.3, Armston property. Mr. Julius.
A wee while ago, council had agreed to sell some of the sections down in Palmerston, and there were a couple more that probably should have been added to that package. So what this report is requesting is that we add these other pieces in. We've been on site. There is it's challenging to say the least, because of the water courses that are going through it. So it would make sense to do it as part of the bigger package.
Thank you. So any questions, Mr. Julius? Councillor Williams.
I can see there's a market appraisal for 10 to 15,000. Is that a current market appraisal? Because the RV of these properties is more like, and it's struggling. Whoever buys this for 10 to 15,000 is probably going to put it straight back on the market for something more than that, because it will just be snapped up because it's land under 100,000. So I wonder, I'm struggling to come to terms with that valuation.
Pop down, have a look.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best option. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but as you know, RVs are not a fair representation of what the values may be in real life.
Can I ask who the real estate agent was who gave a valuation of 10 to 15,000?
Yes, Mr. Spivey.
Any further questions?
Ken, just The question, Mrs. Jude, is that in terms of that, it is on the map on page 21, it shows a watercourse going through and then forking off. So there's two separate watercourse, two arms of the watercourse. In terms of building on that section, would council give any consent to build over a watercourse, even if it was piped or anything like that?
I'm not a building control officer, I'm sorry, no. It would be challenging.
Would be challenging.
Very.
Any further? Well, sorry, Mr. Cock, have you got a view on building over a watercourse?
Yes, I agree with Julius. It would be challenging. Planning issues, say, recognised watercourse.
Thank you. Councillor. Okay, if that's all the questioning, something care to move the recommendation. Councillor Tavendale, seconded Mayor Kircher. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
No, that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the memorandum reports, assets group activity report. Mr. Rendell, any opening comments?
I think the executive summary there has most of my comments.
Correct. So we'll just go through this page by page. Just raise your hand if you wish to ask. Picture on the first page, page 24, 25. Six. Councillor Tavendale.
Just through the chair, the water mains flushing, as well as cleaning out pipes and things, does that show a whole lot of issues, or does that sort of expose issues along the way? And if so, at the time, do we have the ability to remedy anything that comes up?
Yeah. Through the chair, water main flushing is just a cyclic program, just highlight here because it's quite visual. Normally you don't see most of the stuff we do, but we're spraying water all over the road and stuff. Effectively what it does is some of the network sits reasonably idle, as it doesn't go around in circles. So it's like dead end lines. So we're effectively flushing the sediment out of those pipes. So what we do is we increase the velocity in the pipe, lifts the sediment and throw it off the road. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it doesn't expose any issues at all. Just ensures that the quality of the water is maintained.
Anything further on 26? Move to page 27.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to ask a question around, I see that the dispersal fields at Palmerston are being upgraded. Is that the existing field or are you extending the field?
Through the chair, both. So we're adding on more surface area to irrigate. Because what we found is with the amount of area we've got at the moment, it becomes buggy over the space of a few years. So we're proposing to extend, or we are extending dispersal fields to cover a larger area and give us more time to cycle through them. Government.
Thank you. Anything further on 27? Move to page 28. Roading now. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Harrison? Yes. Mr. Tavendale.
Just on, obviously we had quite a rain event and over the weekend. Shall we test things again, just to add to what we've already had? Cleaning of culverts, I always have that thrown at me by disgruntled people that think we should be out cleaning culverts. I just want to comment on how many culverts we have in the district and the program around cleaning them, just to help people understand that if we know it's going to rain tomorrow, we can't clean all culverts.
Through the chair, thank you. That is an issue that comes through this time of the year because we are in the fall period with the leaf drop. It happens right through the year, but right at the moment we've got a delayed leaf drop. The season's a little bit longer, So you notice a lot of trees are still in leaf. The rainfalls we've had have actually managed to drop a lot of leaves in a very short period of time. So the 2 rainfall events we've had in the last couple of weeks have actually shown that while there is a program of cleaning sumps and culverts, we get that instant or that first flush from an event where it does catch us and we have to respond to that. It seems to be worse this year than most years, but it's shades of the likes of 7th Street. The leaves are still sitting on the trees, so we normally have a knee-deep length of leaves in most of 7th Street. So it is coming, and it's those unblocking of the street grates is an ongoing issue.
And the ongoing rain, I mean, the weekend rain event, have you had much damage reported from that one?
Through the chair, I haven't had any damage reported, but we are following up on a few things, particularly from the western situation on the Tuesday night. We're still investigating some of the pipe work here just to see what's going on. We've got some camera work going and everything. It's still a work in progress.
Thank you.
Kerr?
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question around the maintenance metalling program? Do we actually impose a standard as to the metal that we use?
Through the chair,
Mr. Harrison.
So the maintenance metal we put on there has a grading curve and a mixture of what's required to go in. We do have a few trials. The likes of the recent metal that we put into Wairaki and Haven Street was a clay bound one. So we mix clays into otherwise very, very clean gravels to make them stick together. And that has some issues around dust, so we're managing dust and serviceability on it.
Good. Any further questions? Page 28. Moving on to page 29. Councillor Kirby.
Chair, thank you. While I'm looking at this committee, I have a question regarding the lizard rehabilitation program. The cost on it.
Through the chair, I don't have that figure. We do have a cost on it. I don't know what it is at this moment. I can come back to you.
Just on the Kiwi Rail underbridge, 2 quick questions. One, I'm guessing that we fund the entirety. It's not co-funded by Kiwi Rail.
That's correct.
And just another question is, I'm presuming this is going to mean that all vehicles are allowed to use that way now, and obviously no oversized vehicles much, but this will mean that the ones that were using it previously can, the heavy vehicles.
Through the chair, that is correct, yes.
Fantastic.
The height of the bridge will remain the same. Anything further on page 29? Page 30. 31.
Sorry.
That's turned up.
Just on the bridge work, Western Road, obviously there's some quite wide trucks that could use that route. When you talk about heavy vehicles now being able to use that road, that includes those trucks?
Through the chair, that is correct, yes. I did notice when I did inspection of the weekend that the no high productivity motor vehicle sign was still up, so I need to actually action that. The intent of doing that work was that the restrictions.
Perfect, thank you.
That's not holding.
Page 32, if there's no questions.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Mike, and the team. Just the minor improvements, say that Parsons Road intersection, helping cyclists get around the corner and access the observation is much appreciated on behalf of those cyclists that approached me with that request. So thank you for actioning that.
This is just on page 31. The intersection upgrade, Derwent Street roundabout. There's a bit of a stir out there about how large we made the turning circle once again. I just want basically just for you to talk people through the process so that they understand why it was made that size and whether it could have been any smaller, or yeah, just your view on how this has been played out.
Through the chair, there has been a few questions around the size of it because it is larger than some of the other roundabouts we have built in recent times. So we've gone through a process here with the swept pass for the vehicles that go through there to make it as easy for the 95% of traffic going through there. There will always be some over-dimensional type loads come through, and that's why there's a large concrete apron there. Those vehicles will travel on that. The diameter is the appropriate diameter. It's not only around the actual swept path of the vehicles, but it's around having the 5 legs coming into it. It's around how you connect all those together. So it's a combination of all of those. And there's been a lot of work gone to make sure that it's working correctly. Some of the approaches at the moment are a little bit hard to follow until the road markings go down. It's not as clear as what it will be. But we have had road metals with their articulated trucks going around there in the later part of last week, and we've had the buses going around too, just to do a final check before we get to the asphalt stage to make sure that it's working correctly. And 2 things is we've changed the crossfall of the road, so when vehicles are turning for larger sided vehicles, they're not so inclined to fall over. Not to say that they have fallen over, but the previous gradients here of about 12 to 14% on the downhill did actually make it quite a risk of stability. So we flattened that off for turning vehicles, also slowing vehicles down. So it's only a very small slowing, but it does give people more time to see what's coming and give way to what's on the roundabout. So it is actually looking how it's performing, if it's performing to design.
Any further questions on page 31? Page 32. Councillor Holly.
Sorry, right, would you better tell us why there's a delay in the crash is being reported for the crash analysis?
Through the chair, the crashes are reported on the site, at least at the time, and it does take some time for them to come through. Not really sure why that is, but it will come down to staff resource and actually the loading of it. We do monitor that because there's some crashes that we know of and we're attending on them, and they might never get on there. So it's a continual discussion with police around how important that crash statistics information is to us, because that informs the work we're doing.
I thought so. Supplementary to that, above the statement about first 3 months represent over half the target. Is that concerning, or is that going the other way?
Through the chair, that is concerning. Don't really want to have targets. We don't want to have targets at all. It is road to zero. But the actual fact is, when we look at our crash statistics and what's coming through, we are having another bad year. And so it's not trending in the right direction. Whether that's an infrastructure fault or whether that's a whole education and enforcement, education and behavioural, it's all of those things put together. But yes, you're correct, it's not trending in the right direction. Best we can say is it's not getting substantially worse, but it's certainly not getting better.
Any further questions on page 32? Page 23.
Yeah, Mr. Harrison, under asset management, paragraph 2, you put that in layman's terms and tell me what resources you're investing in that program?
Through the chair, yes, we're going through analysing all the data we do have to see how we make sure that's most appropriate. One of the things that come out in the recent weeks is we look and say that over the last 12 months, we spent a third of our maintenance money on collector roads. That's where we have 80% of our traffic. 2/3 of our money went on to the greater portion of the network, so that's 80% of the network, but it only has 20% of the traffic on it. So we're looking at all these things around how we provide the best outcome for the majority of drivers. So it is taking time to go through that. So at the moment, we're directing our existing resources, and part of our plan is to actually build those resources around so we can actually do more in-house rather than having consultants to give that information. So it's around giving continual response, and we'll direct our maintenance team.
So what you're saying is you're going to put money, you're going to divert money into higher volume roads, then concentrating funding on low volume. Is that what you're saying?
Through this
Keeping
year,
up the level of service, but putting the money in high volume.
through this year, it's directing the money to where the best benefit and result will come. And you could read it that way, but it's not around the traffic numbers, it's around how we actually provide the greatest benefit to the greatest number of motorists. So we've collected roads that go through our rural areas, so it's not rural urban, it's around where we get the majority of our traffic going. And we acknowledge that our rural areas actually provides our primary production and our business growth, business through the district, and that's important to us. So it's a matter of putting the right resources in the right place and making sure that we're doing the right things. If that's anything, it's something we want to report to you around facts and figures around what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Makes sense.
It should make sense. At the moment, I don't have enough information to give you a good picture on what's actually happening out there. So I need to get that into picture so that I can inform the governance team.
Thank you. Moving on to recreation, page 34. Can't have Humphrey Dump on the wall. Any questions, page 34?
Yeah, thanks for your report, Eric. And on the observation, just looking at the first paragraph at the score achieved by the observation that appeared to be doing great rides, it's above the well above the average. So it's great for us receiving that sort of score. And also noticed in the second paragraph that 90.5% of riders in the observation rider survey were here solely because of the trail. That just shows the economic benefit that is being delivered by the observation trail. So thank you for that advice. And haven't heard about the announcement from the MD regarding repairs yet?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no.
Thank you, Eric.
Councillor Williams.
Once again, thank you, Eric. I just have a question, just basically regarding bike trails, so the outstation, it's going fantastically. And we had some email traffic recently regarding the Odiaki bridle trail. Just a little bit of concern out in the community from our horse riders, and that trying to make sure that we work to the future where horse riders don't get unnecessary using those trails if we only submit in support of cyclists. I don't think we get a chance to submit again on that Odiaki bridle path for 5 years. Is that correct? I could be
through you, Mr. Chair. So it's unknown as to when there'll be an opportunity to submit again. This is Department of Conservation's conservation management strategy. They were doing an interim review, which was focused solely on cycles. So our submission was on behalf of access to cycles. That was the only component of the CMS they considered.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I understand that you were probably restricted by that, but there's always a concern that once something gets taken over solely by cyclists, that it's such a fight for horse riders to break back into using it again. So it would be nice if we could try to, horse riders bring as much to our district as cyclists bring to our district. There's no need to segregate them. I just wanted to make sure that we would do that in the future.
Just speaking in support of Councillor Williams, as much as we might submit in support of cyclists, it is being mindful that we're doing a lot for cyclists and cycle trails, and not very aware we're not doing a lot for horse riders, but we need to make sure that whatever happens, that actually puts cycles onto trails that are traditionally used by horse riders, that we're not compromising. It's a matter of respecting that part of our community as well, and as much as you can submit in favour of cyclists, it's also saying that it shouldn't be at the expense of existing horse riding trail.
Mr. Chair, I've had the same feedback that the horse fraternity is feeling unloved, and I agree, albeit with a personal interest that horses are important.
Okay, points made. Councillor Percival.
Yeah, Eric, we've got 17% up, which is pretty much understandable after COVID last year. But we often get so many reports showing percentages up, down and around, but we don't get the numbers. So how can we have an idea what's happening if we don't get numbers? There was 2,000 gates, 2.5 this year or whatever, but it's all very well saying percentages, but it means absolutely nothing. So when are we going to actually get facts, or have I missed the thing total?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the difficulty is there are 7 different counters on the trail, and there are so many different users that use the trail in different ways. That have locals that use the trail just for their weekend exercise, and they may go both ways, both directions. And also obviously have our visitors that may ride all or part of the trail. So the numbers are never going to be absolute with a variety of different groups. MB are doing some further work as far as trying to provide some sort of calibration, so we can actually, I guess, try to articulate the numbers. But we do need to be mindful that because of the variety of different groups, those numbers will never be absolute.
Yeah, but this has been going on for years, and we've never actually had numbers. So I just don't, for the hundreds of thousands of dollars pushed into this, we don't really know who's using it. But it just doesn't make sense.
I mean, through you, Mr. Chair, the numbers are an indicator, and the trends are actually more important. That shows either the usage is increasing or decreasing. What's probably more pertinent is the economic benefit and the evidence that's coming out from the communities as far as businesses and the growth of businesses in different communities such as Enfield and Duntrue. The additional investment in the more businesses that are actually establishing to benefit users. I think that speaks for itself.
Just picking up on Councillor Percival's point, I think we could put as Eric noted, it's the trend absolutes that we're interested in. So we could put gather together some trend information and put that into the next update in terms of what's happening across time.
Point. Anything further on page 34? Page 35. I have a question. Has there been a further workshop with regard to the camping? Lakes camping?
We're looking to schedule the workshop in the next month.
Okay, good. Anything further on page 35? Yes, Tim.
Just around cemeteries, I'm not sure if that's an ongoing trend, but does that change the way we plan for future use of our cemeteries?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it does change how we plan. There's increase in interest in passion tournaments, particularly for some of our cemeteries. We're mindful of providing ash tournament opportunities as opposed to our cemeteries, which is sell plot passion tournaments. The other interesting thing to note here is actually there's an increase in reuse or interments into existing plots as opposed to
Page 36.
Yeah, just on the playground park, the 2 paddling pools. Noticed yesterday that one that was water through it. Is that to be drained because and what's going to happen with those? Are they going to be destroyed and replaced? And that's budgeted and on the cards.
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, every winter we do drain those ponds. So it's basically a winter OTS only. And the new concept, the water play area will replace those existing ponds that are on the same site.
Does that work through the start?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're still seeking approximately $80,000 to $90,000. So we've done another funding application to try to secure that.
I think it's worth highlighting the 5-star rating for the public gardens once again. I think we celebrate success as often as we could. Further on page 36. Councillor Holding.
Probably just a good time to acknowledge contractors for our parks and probably sextons and caretakers of cemeteries around the district. Work they've done in making yards look good for the Anzac celebrations. There's quite a bit of feedback from the community with the mowings and planting bits and pieces.
Pass it on.
So just for clarification, Eric, how long was the toilet facility noted on page 36 out of action after the reasonably serious vandalism incident?
To Mr. Chair, I don't know at this stage. I'll have to keep it.
Page 37. Thirty-eight. Move now on to property, page 39. Questions? Photos once again of what's happening down there.
Yeah, thanks for the good notations under the photographs, the good details is appreciated as well.
Gee, I think this might be more information coming up in the Harbour area. And I just wondered if there's any opportunity to talk a little bit more about access, public access to Breakwater.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Public access is still an ongoing project that we are looking into. We've had a few legal opinions received, independently assessing those, determining what would be required if we were to proceed with that. Do we have to go through a resource consent amendment process to enable public access to the Breakwater? So it is proceeding. We just don't have an answer yet.
Okay, any further questions on page 39? Page 40. 1.
So I noticed on the home restoration in the Opera House, noted there was 480 kilograms of pigeon droppings removed from in the ceiling. One would imagine that would be quite a large volume of pigeon droppings built up over the years. So I hope the pigeons have been, the access has been denied in future.
There's a little bit of an aside with regard to bird droppings. At the lawn service the other morning, there is a method of getting rid of the pigeon, the seagulls in the town, and that's shotgun salutes, gun salutes. That could be used quite effectively. Anyway, that completes the report. Someone care to move that we receive? Councillor Holding. Councillor Wolstein, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. No. And thank you. That concludes the Assets Committee agenda. And we'll now take a short break and prepare for the next round.
Morena. Welcome to the community culture. Welcome to the public and staff and councillors. Get straight into it. Lateness from Councillor Hopkins, and I believe that's all. If someone can move that. Thank you, Councillor Croucher. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against, it's carried. And any declarations of interest? None of those, so we'll move on to confirmation of previous minutes. Councillor Brady, seconded. Councillor Williams. Any comments? I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Over to our camping bylaw. Over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. The first paper of today is the Responsible Freedom Camping Bylaw Review. We have Mr. Bardsley here who will talk to it.
Good morning, through the chair, councillors. If there's any questions in relation to this, basically the recommendation is that committee instructs officers to prepare a public consultation document for me to present to the committee for approval before it actually goes out.
So obviously this is something that we've had in front of us years ago when we did have quite an issue in some of the communities. It appears to be working relatively well, so the starting point is to go to happy with our approach.
Page 13, I can see that since 2016, the number of infringements has decreased significantly. So does that mean over the next 5 years, is the focus shifted to a more educational perspective in terms of maintaining
Through the chair, yes, that's exactly right. Obviously, EMB provided funding for Freedom Camping Ambassadors for the last 2 summers. So it's really assisted us in getting that educational message out there. The bylaw, most campers familiarise themselves with the fact that we have a bylaw, and our ambassadors are out there providing that education. We have educational through our Facebook and our website, and our ambassadors have been really good. We've got pamphlets that we hand out to all campers, and these are really good point of contact for them in terms of what they can and can't do, and also promoting the region as well.
Chair, I see this as a very review period and capture a lot of things that will be done, and I'm very happy with the recommendation.
Right, any other question? Right, well, I'll put that. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against, that's carried. Move on to our district plan update.
Thank you very much. As part of the regular updates we provide to the committee, we have the district plan update. I'm pleased to report that the district plan is moving along as per the schedule. A number of you will have sat through recent chapter reviews, and we have Mrs. Clark here from the district plan team to answer any questions you have in relation to the report that's presented.
Did you want to make any other comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just by way of a very brief update, we're progressing well with development of the chapters. We still have remaining 7 chapters to workshop with the committee. In terms of landowner engagement, that's well underway at the moment. We've sent out approximately, contrary to the numbers in the report, we have sent out 340 letters in total. The remaining letters are undergoing some quality control checks this week and should be sent out by the end of the week. We've had several community meetings now in Moraki, Kakanui, Papakayo, and with residents of Muddy Creek. And we are undertaking some further engagement in regards to the spatial plan with the community of Kakanui on the 3rd of May.
Yeah, we text in as well with the spatial plan. So been a lot of work done by the team. Any questions? Councillor?
I would just like to report that to date, the spatial plan has been exceptionally well received by the stakeholders. Really positive engagement from them, and they've also a lot of positive feedback from them, welcoming the opportunity to contribute to that exercise. So I think it's really good that the planning team took that opportunity, and I'm sure committee members have found that important.
And the what they come up with will be, you know, quite a good deal.
And yeah, but just on the Kakanui meeting that covered coastal hazards, district plan review, spatial plan, and touched on the long-term plan as well. It was a really good opportunity for, we've got so much planning going on at the moment that I think for the members of the community, it can be quite daunting and hard to know how it all fits together. So that was a really good meeting to give people an idea of where they direct their comments to make the most meaningful. So I thought putting them all together and having the right people in one place that answer just about any question worked really well, and feedback's been really positive. Right, do I have someone who's willing to move the recommendation? Yeah, good, Chair. Seconder. Councillor Harley. Right, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Again, that's carried. Thank you. And we move on to the heritage environment. Okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. We're pleased to have representatives from the team here to answer the questions. As you'll see from the data, fairly busy period that we're reporting on, and I suggest we go through paper.
Perfect. Right, so councillors, anything on page 22?
As we can see here by quite a few of the numbers, just the variation in workload, looking at building since 27 January 53 to 73 March. It makes a very difficult to plan how you deal with those and still manage to get everything through. And we know we don't have 50 people sitting out back waiting in case something comes in. So you run through how the team deals with that large increases in workload.
Yes, thank you. I would like to invite our team leader, Brent Cunningham, to respond to that.
Through the chair, we focus on managing inspections in-house, and with the peaks and drops with the building consents, the contractors that will take the peaks off the still keep our team busy in-house processing and send stuff away if we need to handle the workload and maintain the statutory timeframes.
And we are maintaining those statutory timeframes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Certainly 547 building inspections in a month seems quite high. How does that line up with other years around that time?
Yeah, it is quite a number, and as you'll see, they start off slowly as the builders and do ramp up. So I think it's a typical amount for around this time of the year, and inspections can fluctuate quite from week to week.
Chair, just to follow on from that, hearing that in some other districts and cities, the wait for just an inspection can be definitely more than a week and into the weeks, which must be very frustrating for the builders there. So just compliment our team on keeping to the statutory timeframes. So just Brent's got any comment on that and how well we do compared to others.
Through the chair, yeah, generally we can get an inspection the next day. Sometimes we go to 2 days. We have technology that we use as well, site remote inspection tool that allows us to do inspections in the office that don't use congestion required.
No, thank you very much.
Councillor Williams, and then I'll take Councillor.
Just wondering our internal workload, so not being out on site, but more of our internal workload. Do we outsource to other councils when we get too busy internally, or are we well covered for that?
To the chair, we don't have any agreement to outsource processing with other councils. We have a contractor that we do our overflow processing. Just take repeats off.
But I understand that many of the councils around us, many in South Island, even though I'm starting to outsource to Christchurch City Council. Have you had much to do with there? Have you heard about others doing that? Even Dunedin started to source their work to their also.
Through the chair, no, I haven't heard. We're talking with the Dunedin manager just recently, and I don't know there's a house at the moment, just something that I'm striving to do, building up the resource.
I think it's the hospital that they plan to outsource to Christchurch. But so just to confirm, using a contractor, is that more expensive than it would be to outsource to another council?
Without having the information about the other councils, what they charge, apparently it's cost neutral to us, but whether it's more expensive.
And take Mr. Cook. I'll just take Mr. Cook.
Just in response to that, Madam Chair, we had a Southern Cluster Building Group meeting most recently, which is the 11 councils in the southern half of the South Island. And it's fair to say that there is currently no evidence of those 11 councils having capacity to take other consent from other people. And most of them are outsourcing their work through private contractors. That was a significant topic of discussion at the meeting around the reliance that local authority BCAs are having to have on private contractors and the risk that can put local authority BCAs at. I would imagine, and I don't know for certain, that if Dunedin is outsourcing, it would be the complexity of the hospital, which they may need peer review on or something.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to ask about cross-pollination within house. For example, a building consent being issued and then asking for a resource consent after the building consent has been issued. Is it not handled in-house where we can go from one department to the other and say, this needs to be done, and then the whole lot issued at once?
Through the chair, when a building consent comes in, goes to the planning team to review district plan considerations as well. So at that point, they'll look at it, if it needs a resource consent, they'll issue a section 37 certificate, that building consent, which allows us to still issue the building consent, but no work can be started until the resource consent is been obtained. Sometimes that gets lost for people who aren't familiar with it. It's hidden in the documentation. We do try and communicate it.
Further to that, Madam Chair, then we talk about the in-house technology that enables you to maybe circumvent when inspectors can't get out on site. Is there a rating of builders that you offer that to, as against others that you regard as being a bit dodgy and require an on-site?
Through the chair, due to the type of technology it is and the risk, inherent risk involved, it is something we use with builders we're familiar with and have a level of trust with, and it also depends on the inspection time as well.
Anything else on building consents? Go on to page 23. And page 24. And on food inspections, 6 weeks for new registrations and 6 months for renewed registrations under statutory timeframe. maybe doesn't fit quite.
Through the chair, those are MPI standards through the Food Act. So our contractor who does our food verifications. So for a new premises, there are premises that's got a new registration with the council, just starting up. So the whole process needs to be reviewed, their food control plan, templates. So it's quite important that they get an inspection done relatively quickly to make sure that they are meeting all of those standards. For the renewal, it's a 6-month renewed registration. For their inspections, because they have a history with the MPI in terms of their food verifications, and that timeframe can be reduced if they have a history of non-compliance. But those are the maximums that we work with. But we certainly we're looking at doing our verifications once they're due. We emphasise to our contractor that we would like those done as soon as practical, rather than waiting that 6 months.
So obviously we don't wait for a 6-month or a 6-week from when we get a phone call and want to have an inspection. It's obviously not those the time frames that we.
No, those are the maximums within the MPI guidelines.
Not in relation to that. The questions are finished on that. I have something else. I notice on the there may be a typographical error on number 4, resource consents non-notified. That looks like a 14% increase rather than 14%.
Right, anything else on page 24? Go to page 25. Page 26. Just want to make comment on page 26 around the funding opportunities. I had feedback from the school principals not so long ago who said is a result of the emails they've been receiving as part of this list that you can subscribe to, that they have actually managed to get quite a bit of funding for their school. I think we talked about $1,000 mark by being made aware of funding. So I think it's fantastic. Money from outside. I just wonder if we can expand a little bit on the wellbeing matrix.
Sorry, got it in front of me. The wellbeing matrix was devised by Marianne Corton, who is doing the work on our wellbeing data, and the purpose behind the matrix was to make the correlation between the 4 well-beings and the work that Safer Waitaki is doing. So, I'm sorry, I don't have the document with me. But if you have a look at it and you read across the top, I think are the 4 well-beings across the top, and then down the side is the work that the Safer Waitaki Coalition is doing. And the idea behind that is to make sure that the work we are doing is contributing towards the 4 well-beings and the work of the council, and that we're not going off in a different direction doing something that is not useful in that regard.
I think that's fantastic, and I think in a strategic sense it might be really helpful for that to come through one of these reports, just to show the alignment of the work in that area and how that's now aligning to the 4 well-beings that councils are expected to take part.
Just read the chair, page 25. All the best with all the work that you're doing.
Right, anything else on page 26? Go to page 27. Page 28.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question in terms of not the consents that we see in front of us, but the actual monitoring or ongoing monitoring of consents that have been issued in the past? Are we actively pursuing that conditions have been adhered to?
I think that would be a good opportunity for Mr. Bardsley and Mr. Burrell to comment on that.
Just through the chair, we have a resource consent monitoring officer that came on board last year, and we go through a risk matrix process looking back at the previously issued resource consents as opposed to also the ones that are coming through now. So through that risk matrix, obviously we look at what the risks are for not monitoring those consents, any compliance issues with the people holding those consents. And our resource consent monitoring officer has actively gone back through many of the consents that have been issued in the last 2 years and touched base with those consent holders and done some site visits to just check those consent monitoring. Obviously bearing in mind the compliance team and then the size of the district that we have. It's the reason that we have that risk matrix. We look at those ones that are most risk.
Madam Chair, can I therefore bring to the attention of the compliance team the Crib Owners Association at Shag Point have been in my ear telling me that the consent for when forestry was planted there required a fire break. I've been down, I can't see it, and they're very nervous after they go how that if anything, an event happened there, they could be trapped.
I think just to touch on that, obviously this is a new position, so we haven't probably done as much of this in the past as we are now. And would I be right in saying that we look at the last 2 years and the ones that are higher risk, but we also probably would respond to requests from the community if things are brought to our attention?
So through the chair, the forestry at Shag Point is one that we have actually done some investigation on. Since the forestry was planted, there's been some of the properties subdivided. There's new owners of some of those properties, and it is something that we're aware of, and it's part of a bigger picture in terms of the focus we have on forestry at the moment within the district, but it's something that we are aware of.
Right, councillors, anything else on page of 159 at the moment? Go on to page 30. 31. Right. Can we have someone that will that and second the council. Any other questions on that?
Right.
Yes, it's carried. Now, Bailey.
I'd just like to thank Mr. Burrell for coming in off his leave. He didn't have any early questions for him, so he got away lightly. So thank you, Hamish.
Go enjoy your time off. We currently have Bailey, who's the group manager, next away on leave, and I think
No, I'd just like to let the team have a chance to change over.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I can pass it on. Thank you.
Very much, everybody. Given how well this morning we're working through the reports, I suggest we follow the similar format.
Okay. Okay, councillors, we'll go to this page by page. You click on page 32. Page 33. Just a comment, council usually does raise, but the cultural facilities development project will be having a workshop around that to get a bit more detail on the stage 2 of the project very shortly. Nothing else on page 33. Go through page 34. Page 35. Library. How's the first few weeks on the new job gone?
Through the chair, really great, thank you. You'll note from the report there's been a report format change, And the rationale for that is to bring the work that we're doing into alignment from a strategic point of view to the work that the council's doing as far as the strategic outcomes for the council, but also the Public Libraries of New Zealand strategic framework.
So yeah, it is aligned and very keen on feedback on it too. We're still sort of trying to work out strategically what might be these reports for you themselves to get the information you require.
I quite like the new format. Allows us to kind of look at the mission, do what aligns with our council. I appreciate it.
Anything on page 36? Page 37. Page 38. Page 39. It's good to see the Te Reo lessons getting good uptake, and also just to see that staff are also doing that. I thought that really came across well, and welcome that we had for your staff. But I think it's really fantastic thing for our staff to be growing.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
On page 39, councillors. Page 40. Page 41. We'll move on to the Opera House.
Just a comment to Francis. Sharing some positive feedback. And the production crew also got in touch after. They're quite keen to come back and run a workshop for
Yes, on page 42, councillors. Go to page 44. Boundary. Page 44. Page 45. Right, that's the end of the activity report. There's no other questions. I'll ask this. I'll put that all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against, it's carried. Thank you very much for your time. Meeting.
Chair, if I could just say, we're basically going to have a break and we're bringing forward the harbour area committee meeting. We'll start at 11 a.m. Make that time. So yeah, we're looking to start restart our meetings here with that, and we'll go away through that. May need to confirm the time. It may need to start at 1:30 because see how that all works out. For the time being, until we're in the box.
So I'll see you all back here at 11.
Morning, everyone, and welcome back again as we recommence, or as we commence the harbour area meeting. Just welcome to respective staff who have come to join us, and to our community members who have joined this meeting as well. So thank you very much for being here, and for your flexibility in coming a bit earlier than what was going to be scheduled. So just move on to any apologies. Any? Okay, that's fine. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay. Move to the confirmation of previous minutes on page 6. Someone like to move a true and accurate record? Mr. Clark, thank you. Any comments? Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, so moving on to, we've got one decision report, and that's on the location of an EV charging station in the harbour area. Item 4.1 on page 12. So, just hand over to Mr. Hope.
Community Chair. Yeah, so this is a request from Network Waitaki, who has received funding to install EV charging stations in various locations around the supply area. They've identified a location in the harbour, and officers, when we received it, thought it was appropriate to bring to the Harbour Area Committee to get sign off on the location, given its potential impact or otherwise on the plans that council and the committee has for the harbour. So really to answer any questions, supply any further information we can.
Okay, so questions first of all. So Councillor Wallstein.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Mr. Hope. On my page, it does comment on this on page number 13. That the infrastructure now will include reasonable facility to extend the number of all-scale charging stations. Is there any more information on that? Is there on just in that location? The application provides a two vehicle parks with a charger in the middle. But what is that to extend the number or scale of charging stations that you need?
You have to defer to someone at the other end of the table to try and answer that one.
Mr. Rendell,
I believe if the uptake is quite positive in charging stations, and we do have a waiting list, or multiple vehicles being parked at any one time waiting to charge, they'll look at putting a second charging station at the same facility so that both vehicles can charge at the same time. Having one and then the other person having to wait for that person to arrive site. So it isn't about putting additional charging stations all the way through the car park. It's just about maximising use on those two sites.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
Councillor Tavendale.
There's a mention in the report of electric bikes being potential to charge, to have a charging station as well. Do we have any idea what that might look like and where that could be? I just think if we're approving this, it's probably worth to get it.
No, through the chair, it isn't something that has been assessed as yet. Network Waitaki have alluded to the idea that electric bike charging stations could come in. They don't have any plans to do that as yet. As such, we have potential locations. This is something that Network Waitaki has set through to officers with fairly little notice in reality. So just trying to bring something to you on the basis of this, rather than looking outside of what other aspects might be included.
Mr. Murdoch.
Is there any other sites that this could happen? The only thing that worries me is that the sight lines, when you come out of Harbour Street, we're going to see it. Are we going to see a lineup of charging stations? Like if you go down there, it's quite a visible place that the plan has had, for these things. And at the moment, yeah, sure, there might be one or two, but as we get more into electric cars, is there going to be 6, 7, 8? Are we going to have a whole lot of charging stations right there? So is there any other location has been discussed for it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this has been the only location that Network Waitaki has presented to officers. If this location isn't preferred by yourselves, we can look at other options.
They do have limited timeframes within which to work, so they've only got funding until 1st of July. So if we don't proceed in a fairly rapid manner, we may not be able to get funding for one of those installations to be had to recover. So,
Councillor Williams, just to go.
I just want to confirm, just because we've got 1 or 2 sites in there now, does not mean we're committing to the future of 7 or 8 sites.
We just spent the last hour and a half down there having a look, and I think that it is in the wrong sight line. It's right in the middle of where you look down that street towards the harbour. We looked for other sites that would be perhaps more compatible, and round to the car park opposite the galley. It's in behind the children's bike park there. If they were situated towards the north end of that car park up against the fence there, they're non-intrusive. It's a wee bit further to run cable, it's about another 150 metres, go around the corner. That will be much more aesthetically pleasing. And I think whilst we're not committing to future charging stations, if electric cars become what everyone seems to think they will, there will be rows of chargers because gas stations are going to go out of business, be reduced. So there'll become a demand. It is good to invite people down to that area. That's what we're trying to do as part of the Harbour Committee. But we certainly want to retain the visual aspects. And I think that the site we've indicated would be much more preferable, certainly from the independent members. Sorry, Phil, you weren't here at that particular thing, but you may well agree or not. But certainly the other 3 of us, it was much better preferred site.
Yeah, I guess it's trying to find the right compromise. You know, at the moment, it's almost like having a reserved park, and where it's being proposed, I think, is apart from the visual side, which we've talked about, but just the fact that it's some fairly prime parking spot as far as accessibility to everything around the area. And you know, it sort of says, well, if you've got an EV, yes, you can park in one of those parks, but if you're not, you're going to park somewhere that maybe not quite so convenient and so on. So it is trying to get that right balance around the location, visual amenity, and also for general accessibility around the area without having it at the expense of other users in the area. I agree with, I think there are better spots for sure. Councillor Holden.
I'm just wondering, do we know what the usage is on other ones around, say, Eden Street car park?
I don't have that information.
Just talking to Network Tech in the past, and they get high usage because they've been supplying basically free power. They haven't been charging for that. They're going, if they haven't already, they're changing to using ChargeNet, which is more of I think a national system of charging stations right around, where there is a charge for the power and also for the time you spend sitting in the park. My mind, it's actually goes from being free to quite expensive, as opposed to the cost of electricity, but that's another story. So again, they definitely have been used by Tiki District because they've been free, but that might change a little bit, maybe just curb some of the use that they've been given. Mr. Kelcher.
Yeah, just run through the point where that car park ends now. There's quite a gap between there and the railway line. Now, in future time, I think that'll be developed further, one way or another. So by putting it there, you're actually restricting what you can do between there and the other 20 metres or etc. you've got left.
Okay, Councillor Timber.
I certainly support Mr. Culture's suggestion. I think that does make a lot of sense to my have any comment on the other car park. That would be appropriate.
It's something that, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, it's something that we'll have to go back to them taking on just to see what their preferences. The site that they chose was because it wasn't a prime location and the infrastructure was nearby, so they were able to do it at a fairly cost-effective rate. Whether they'd be willing to extend cabling down to the other location, I'm not too sure. We never asked them.
saying that the caravans probably going to come from across the road.
That's correct, yes.
So if you think about it, there's not actually a huge amount of extra by the time you cross the road or the bike park and then leave it. It's not about more. But I think we've also got to be real mindful of we choose rather than driven by someone.
Second.
So that car park is really the prime location in terms of the space available in use. It's often full. So that would be my only concern with that space, is that it's going to exclude other vehicles from it. And then I think you probably get cars using those spaces that shouldn't. But in terms of the sight lines, can't you look at a site maybe towards the back of the brewery, so it's not visually obstructing the view lines, but it's in that space that's a bit more open. And there's more sight open.
Mr. Clark.
Yeah, I had a chat to Craig Conlon this morning, actually. I think it would be possible to extend on the financial side of things for Metro not. He said that you can understand that where they've proposed this really a convenient spot to put it for them, but does agree that possibly be in the wrong place. Also, it was mentioned his proposal about vision for the which is something that's close to my heart. So putting it where we have suggested give a great power supply for that whole green space in front of the reserve and things that happen. So it could be a three-phase power supply here, which they would bring in perhaps with no development levy.
Yep. No, I think, yeah, cunning suggestion. Very good. Thank you. Okay, councillors, if you're happy, I think what I'm hearing is a preference for this other site, and perhaps that we phrase a motion suggesting that officers discuss with the Network Waitaki that site and the possibility of also providing at the same time a power supply that could be used for events, same location. So I want to frame something up around that, Councillor Tivendale.
Brilliant. What is it?
I'd just like a bit more information, if I may, Mr. Chair, on that actual site.
The site, so that is the car park.
It's basically the last two spaces prior to where the access is into the green space.
So at the
northern end of that
northwest corner of the bike park car park.
And if we needed extra car parking there in the future, there is a possibility to extend that car park through into that green space, which won't be for years at some stage.
Brave man. Mr. Councillor.
It didn't used to be a green space.
No. Right. So we've got the motion. Yep.
Area committee requests that officers discuss with Network Waitaki the alternate site being the northwest corner of the bike park car park, and the possibility of also providing at the same time a power supply that could be used for events at the same location.
Okay, so moved. Tivendale, seconded Mr. Belcher. Just comment from Mr. Hope.
Yeah, can we just have clarification? Is the first site, the first requested site, is that request declined? So that it's basically if they say no, the bike park car park is not viable for some reason, that they need to find another site rather than revert back to the original request.
Well, I think if, you know, we're saying this is the site we wanted at, and by default, yeah, we are declining what they asked for. I think if they say, well, it's not going to be feasible there, then we've got the ability, I think, to have a formal discussion about where else it might be, and sound, you know, rather than have to come back to a meeting, then go back to the end of it and keep that cycle going. We can talk about that should this site not be suitable. So I think if we do it that way, all going well, like he's had a discussion with Waiteki, and it sounds like it could be feasible in perspective. I'm sure they have to do a little bit more work on it, but hopefully it does work out and they can just proceed on that basis. Councillor Ornstein.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I'd like to support Philippa's idea to a degree as a second option, because moving this further along out of the sight line, further to the south, along past Scott's, to me, Philippa seemed to be another option as well, which would be more cabling, but it'd be more cabling, you know, we were talking about it on the bike park, so more cabling this way, there could be second option, more cabling that way, take it out of that little sight line. So just as some support for the idea.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a good alternative, but I think we'll try this one with them and see what the response is. Hopefully, if they're on with it. Yeah. If it's needed. I think, you know, make that the first point. Line of this. We're saying talk to take about the second site, and then thirdly, if that does work out, we have what's currently number 2, the resource officers establishing a license to occupy with network Waiteki and the installation and operation of the station. So move that. Yeah, Mr. Galcher, you happy with all of those 3 parts to that? Yes. Okay. Any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I just think that the sightlines is I think that we yeah, so I don't see any issue, and I know that car park is well used, but the other one is to, once we actually work on getting around here at the best car park, I think the other parts we use well as well. So I think we look at this also means that whatever we do on the other side doesn't
Can you just read it again? Sorry, I'm just being a wee bit cautious here. I just think it might need something in front of the 3rd resolution about either a reference to that site or an other mutually agreed site.
I think this the new motion number 2 it sets out what we're talking about, where we're talking about, and then it's endorsing establishing a license to occupy. I mean, we're not talking about any other site. It's a clear direction, but I'll ask government to write just to read that second one.
Point number 2, requests that officers discuss with Network Waiteki the alternate site being the northwest corner of the bike park car park, and the possibility of also providing at the same time a power supply that could be used for events at the same location.
Okay. I'll put it. Those in favour of those 3 motions, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you very much for the homework done on that. I think where it was too much in the centre of everything, and this is a good compromise around still having something accessible for those with EVs, but not taking up, you know, being very centre of So thank you for that. Now moving on to the 5.1, the harbour area projects update. Mr. Hope or Mr. Rendell?
I'll have Mr. Rendell on this one, please.
To speak.
So given that we had a decision report, we thought it might be timely to include a bit of an update on the projects that are currently in play. There's several projects that are currently underway. The major of which I suppose is the Breakwater rock armouring, renovation of Holmes Wharf, which will shortly be undertaken, slipway improvement, which is carrying on, and then the public access to the Breakwater, which is what's happening behind the scenes on that one. So the report just tables some of the information on the current projects and gives some information on projects that will be happening in the short future.
Thank you. Okay, so perhaps work through pages here. So starting off, I'll just call the page numbers and we'll just let me know if you've got anything to discuss on that page. So anything, first of all, page 18, page 19.
Just around the potholes, if you're working on outside of the restaurant, is there a bit of a cost to keep those topped up, or is it
All of those being included in the budget for the project.
The Parks and Recreation team are putting together an application to the TIF fund for potential sealing or resealing of the car park, trying to take care of that sealed part of the car park around between Penguin Colony and Belmar, and also looking at what we term as the Penguin Colony car park. So we shall see how we go with that, but there's a focus this time round on several areas that have been particularly affected tourism-wise by COVID. Queenstown Lakes being the obvious one, but also Mackenzie districts, as they've got some priority around that. That we've got support from Mackenzie for our applications going through the TIF fund. So whether that carries some extra weight, because we seem to be two councils working closely together that are closely linked by tourism, particularly in the upper end of the Waitaki district. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Mr. Clark.
I took a drive around the car park the other day. I just wonder, this jurisdiction, is it like with all the growth, the weeds and everything in the Colony car park? It's quite messy, and I think we talked about before where the burn is between the quarry and that could be easily landscaped. Should have done it years ago. But like, who is it? Is it Penguin Colony?
It's yeah, so yeah, I think it's bigger than a boom, so it becomes a bund. And it would be good to landscape that, because yeah, inevitably it gets overgrown, it gets tidied up, it gets overgrown again. So some work on that would be helpful. The car park itself is the part of property asset portfolio. So I'll just get Mrs. Julius to comment, and then we'll go to Dr. Reid.
Through you, Mr. Chair. There is a defined area that the Penguin Colony exclusively leases, so they're responsible for that area. Anything outside of that, it is property's responsibility. I'll have a look and see what we can do.
Well, yeah, that too. So with reference to that area, long term is part of our agreement is to turn that into this car park is like a that moving forward. So yeah, and like Kitch was saying, once you start landscaping it, it takes a lot to maintain it because the weeds are just. Well, I hear what you say. It's not just, it's just going on the landscape.
So the concept is that about fencing off the bund and that becoming a breeding.
Just part of the car park as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so taking a bit on the eastern side of the car park, fencing off the southern side. A little as well. Yeah, that makes good sense. Okay. Happy with that? Okay, so anything else on page 19? Page 20? Councillor Holding?
Just with the concern around the dock not being approved party for the resource process, are we looking at ways that we could mitigate the way we do the work out there to gain access?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are just working with them at the moment just to try and find out exactly what needs to be done and whether we can go the simple way, whether it goes, results in a more difficult way. So there is quite a bit of work happening behind the scenes.
Councillor Wolfson?
Yeah, I think just the report. Thank you, Mikucha. The report under emerging risks paragraph does point out that a new consent would be required if you want to change it to reinstate public access at a significant additional cost and time with no guarantee of a successful outcome. So working with DOC as council is doing at the present time is the best option at this stage and seeing where that leads us to. Was the best option, but the only option.
Mr. Kelcher.
Chair, I think it's an interesting thing that there's more seals there now. I think we're creating a habitat for seals by putting rock in there. We're currently running machines up and down there. That, to my knowledge, no detriment to seals or wildlife. I find DOC's opposition to these things, no disrespect, quite outrageous to the degree that potential walk up there is quite easy. It's going to be a lot safer given it's going to be rock shelf there. And I actually wonder at what level we're talking to DOC. Are we talking to the right people? My past experience with DOC and Dunedin is that they can be quite difficult, and maybe we need to be further up the chain to get the answers that we should get, including going to Wellington.
So can we give any further information? Now that discussion is going.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I believe we've had some fairly positive discussions with local representatives and regional representatives. Our project manager, Crime Roads, has been undertaking that work. It seems as though it is fairly positive. They're concerned about safety as well as impact on wildlife. The impact on wildlife is currently being assessed. Hopefully we will have a way forward for too long. If we do need to move further up the chain,
yeah, I think it's would be helpful anyway for further up the chain to be knowing the various pressures and so on happening here, and the fact that actually there's still a considerable amount of activity happening on the breakwater, and the numbers of seals are continue to increase. So there is that benefit. But yeah, I think as Mr. Power meets regularly with the CE from DOC, that there's potential for just a briefing to say this is what's happening. So here's a good understanding how we can both look after the wildlife and the public. If you're happy with that, we appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on page 20? Page 21. 2. Getting into the general update, Mr. Clark.
Just a little update on the lead sheets. Nigel de Geese was putting a trench past the 2 little red sheds that are sitting by Sumter's Wharf. So I took the opportunity to talk to the property and put in drain while the trench was open. And, that's been GPSed between the two little sheds, so that's one thing that's probably saved us a bit of money later, because they had the ecological authority to go with that. And Nigel was very helpful. The drain is a special report. It's an extra one which he's let us use, so it's all done. Well,
Very good. Yeah. One of those cunning plans. It's very good. No, it's certainly appreciated your attention to those sorts of things that are going on. Lucky that you know, thinking what else can be done at the same time. I know throughout the last 20 years, I guess, in that area, there's all these extra wee things that happen to help make the place better one. So mentioned along the way. So thank you for that. Anything else on page 21, 22, sorry. 23. 24. 5. 6. 37. 28. 9. 30. 31. And 32. Just going forward, so the next 33 is the renovation of Holmes Wharf. So anything on that? Okay. Mr. Murdoch, you talked before about a more general issue at the harbour. Do you want to raise that now?
Yes, I'd like to raise, especially on behalf of the yacht club. The council appears not to have much teeth in the way of looking after the harbour itself. We've had boats arrive into the harbour that don't have moorings. There is a wharf going to be decommissioned in Dunedin. At Sawyers Bay, there'll be another 19 boats looking for somewhere to go. I just wondered if the council have thought about maybe introducing some bylaws, so at least property have some control over what happens in our harbour.
Okay, so who's best to talk to?
Well,
Mr.
yeah,
Powell.
I'll answer that. So essentially, control for the harbour activities is exercised by the harbour master, and so the regional council has all authority in relation to activities within the harbour, on the harbour surface, if you like. We have had some very fruitful discussions with the regional council, chief executive, and the harbour master just last week in relation to concerns that we share with you about uncontrolled activity within the harbour. And what I can report is that those discussions have been very fruitful, and we think that both councils will be able to work together very, very well. I'll pass across to Ms. Julius to talk about future activity, and my expectation is that Ms. Julius will be bringing a report to council in relation to a review of how moorings are administered within the harbour, etc. And that is, it's quite a significant issue and will require some tough decision making by council further down the line.
Okay, Mrs. Julius, you have a comment on that further?
Yes, we will be undertaking some work on review for the mooring system, because it has been challenging for officers to deal with. So once we have some more information, we'll bring it to the Harbour Area Committee, probably as a workshop to start with. And,
are there controls able to put in place via a bylaw, or what's the nature of how we create more control for it? I mean, we're essentially, we are the port authority. ORC have the responsibility around harbour master duties and so on. But yeah, just get an understanding of what are the mechanisms that we can put in place.
through you, Mr. Chair, we are working really closely, as Mr. Power just said. We had a very good meeting with them last week, so hopefully by the next Harbour Area Committee meeting, we'll have some more to report.
So just to add to that, the relevant bylaw is the Otago Regional Council's bylaw. So because they have the Harbour Master Authority, they also have a bylaw associated with that. I'm sure they'll be very happy to receive any suggestions for improvement that might be necessary. There are sometimes definitional issues, and there's one particular definitional issue that we are sharing legal advice with the Otago Regional Council on. And if we find that the bylaw doesn't have the teeth that it needs to have, then we'll insert the teeth in cooperation with the Regional Council.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, look forward to getting information in due course on that one. And yeah, we spend a lot of money, a lot of ratepayer money, looking after the Breakwater wharves. And you know, it's very frustrating. We create a shelf spot, and then to think that we have very little control over it is a problem. And as Mr. Murdoch has said, looks set to become a bigger problem as other boats get moved out where they have traditionally been. So it's yeah, look forward to a solution. Right, members, do we have anything else you want us to raise under the update? Okay, well with that, we'll declare this meeting closed. Thank you. Oh, we didn't do that one. Move and receive the information. Councillor Wallstein, thank you very much, and Councillor Holding. There, those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, that's carried. Now we can close the meeting, and thank you very much to councillors and community members for your participation in this meeting. What we're going to be doing now is closing off this live stream. Got the Performance Audit and Risk Committee starting at 1:30, so there'll be a new live stream set up for that one, and that will happen accordingly. So thank you very much, everyone, and to anyone who's been watching via the live stream, thank you very much for joining us. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you.